Welcome to the party, ladies and gentlemen. Today I thought I'd show you how I made a little tree recently that seemed to be very popular with people. Lots of people asked how it was built because it's a bit confusing when you look at it, and it's a pretty fun design. As always, materials will be running across the bottom of your screen if you want to build along at home. But I would like to get things started with our Living Mahogany wand. And I want to go ahead and lay down a little base for this tree to get things started. Now, this tree's not going to be very big, but I think about 5 blocks is sort of the sweet spot here, just to give yourself a little bit of space to build on. Now, I want this tree to sort of taper up as it goes up the trunk, as trees often do, and so we're going to give it 3 more right there on top. So that looks good to me to start things off. Now, this build has a lot of hammering in it. So let's go ahead and do a bit of hammering here and sort of get these slopes sort of looking right. So we'll hammer the top 2 to make a little triangle. And I'm just going to hammer this one over here and this middle block to sort of give us sort of a root type of look here. So that looks good to me. I don't think we want to hammer this guy. Nah, it looks too sort of straight on this edge. So we'll just leave this one kind of big there. Alright, so that looks like a nice start to the roots of a tree. And we need to get a little bit more life into this. Now, I think I'm going to go ahead and paint this brown. So all the wood in this build is going to be using brown paint. So anytime you see wood go down, you can go ahead and paint that brown. Alright, so we got our little base for the tree. Now let's start adding a little bit of stuff here to the top. And I realized I forgot a material that I needed here, but that's okay. What we're going to do, we're going to grab some Dynasty wood platforms. And it's important that you get these blocks right. There's going to be one directly above the center, and then one just to the left of that. And this is actually a little trick that I stole from our Dye Trader cart. Not the Dye Trader cart, the Dryad cart, actually. So you can use these platforms to make sort of little vine-looking things. So what you want to do to get things started is hammer these 2 platforms so that they make a little triangle. Now this doesn't really look like a vine even if we grab our... I think we're ultimately going to paint this probably deep lime. We might do green, I'm not really sure. Not particularly grassy looking or anything like that, but another material that I forgot to grab is going to help this out a little bit. So we're going to use echo blocks, which are new to 1.4. So if you're building on mobile, you won't be able to, you'll have to find a workaround for this trick. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to put an echo block just to the left of this second row of wood, and watch what that does. You can see when we put that echo block down, it makes this platform connect to it. And even though you can't see the echo block, you still get this really nice vine effect on the tree, and I really like that. That's all more there is to that one, so let us carry on. I think what I would like to do is maybe let's go ahead and fill in this background wall. So I'm going to drop a bit of grass seed down just so we can kind of see what it's going to look like here. And for some reason that hammers the block. There we go. Beautiful. Alright. Let's go ahead and toss a little background wall. I think for this one for right now, I'm just going to use... Maybe we can use the Magma Wall. So I found this one to be kind of interesting out of the new 1.4 materials. You can see it's got a lot of black and this red for the lava. But when you paint these things using the regular paint, you can get a pretty convincing sort of vine-looking effect there. I kind of like that. So we'll give that a go. We could also try this in brown as well to make it look more like the roots. Maybe that looks a little better. I don't know. We'll leave it brown for right now. Doesn't matter at all. So let's see. What's next on the list? So the next thing I'd like to do, start building up this little trunk here. So I think we're going to start by... Let's go ahead and get some solid blocks up here. So let's head back to our trusty Living Mahogany wand. I think we want one around there, and maybe one just over here. I think that looks fine. I think we still have our brown paint equipped. We do. Beautiful. Alright. So, in order to get kind of a convincing effect on a tree trunk, I'd kind of like to alternate dark browns and lighter browns, just to sort of give an illusion of depth and sort of make it look like some of the parts of the tree are poking out at you, and some of them are kind of tucked away a little bit more. So let's see here what we have to do. What do we want to use? Let's go with... yeah, let's go with our stone wall. And we're going to put that on this rightmost platform block. We're going to toss that on there. I really like these new graveyard walls that you build in the graveyard. They work really, really, really well for natural stuff. It makes it a lot easier. I was never too good at this sort of thing for like natural builds and stuff of that nature. So this definitely helps out quite a bit. So we'll toss that craggy stone there behind that platform. And then I want to try to make these two blocks sort of look like they're connected to the tree a bit better. And so what I'm going to use for that, there's, again, a new wall from the graveyard called Layered Dirt. We're going to put that behind... is Layered Dirt the one that I wanted? I think so. They have different little textures on them depending on which square they're on, so... yeah, there's sort of that bit. So yeah, I think this is the one that we want. So go ahead and take down all these. That looks good to me, I believe. Let's check out another one here. Maybe there's a better one. Let's see. Layered Dirt, that's the one that we have. Oh, maybe we wanted Wavy Dirt. Is that the one that we like better? Wavy Dirt's not bad. I don't know. You pick whichever one you like. I think we will stick with the Layered Dirt. Alright, so we got our Layered Dirt down there now. Now, this little bit over here that's poking out doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, and I would like it to sort of look like the tree's wrapping around itself from behind, so we need something to fill in this gap. These two blocks and these two blocks are all occupied by physical blocks already, so we're going to have to use a background wall there. And something that you can do that's kind of handy is... I'm going to grab a workbench here. It's good to me. And what do we want to craft? We want the wooden fence. And you wouldn't normally put wooden fence in a natural build, but I found that this trick works really nicely. So you just toss that back there. Pretty convincing effect, I think. So yeah, just a single little wall of wooden fence can sort of help you wrap things around in a third dimension. So I really like that. Alright, so let's toss. We got brown paint on all these guys. We do indeed. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Alright, so this tree's starting to take some shape, and we can make it a little bit taller, but I sort of build by the idea that you shouldn't make anything bigger than you absolutely have to. It helps a lot with making your builds look more detailed. Like, I know when I started building, I used to... I would build the outline of my build first, and then I would go back through and fill it in. And what you end up with is you sort of burden yourself with like this problem of trying to fill out all this space that you've laid out for yourself, and it makes it really, really hard. So I like building things very, very small. So to finish off the trunk of this, we just need one more block, or not a block, one more wall of this craggy stone. And that's a pretty convincing tree, I think. Now, this base here, I'm not super happy with. I don't think it looks great. And something that you can do, the nice thing about natural builds is it's sort of up to your interpretation. So it's pretty easy to just go back over this and maybe turn this little bit into a rock. Yeah, that looks a little better. So I think we'll do that. We'll leave that as a rock. And I did that in the original build too, because it just looks really good. All right, so I think we could use a little bit more vine action up here. So I'm gonna put one more up there. I don't think I want another one. I think just one is good enough. We'll go ahead and paint that with our deep lime. We're gonna give this guy the old hammer. And we'll find one that looks sort of leafy. That doesn't look leafy at all. Maybe we don't with Dynasty there. Sometimes you just gotta change things up. I don't have all the answers. So maybe we'll try our rich mahogany leaf. Maybe this is a better look for what we want here. Yeah, that looks awesome. Perfect. Okay. That's the trunk of a tree if I've ever seen one. Let's go ahead and add some life to this thing, give it some leaves and branches. So, let's see here. So for doing leaves, we want to use our leaf wands mostly. We're going to start with the mahogany one. The mahogany one's a little bit more of a lime colored, whereas the regular leaf wand is more of like the green that you'd expect out of a paint. And then I'm just going to kind of draw some branches in. There's not really a great way to do this. I'm going to go ahead and hammer that so I don't lose my look here. There we go. So there's not really a right or wrong way to do this. So this tree's not going to look exactly like the one that I've been posting everywhere, if you caught wind of that, but that's okay, because I want to show you guys that you can absolutely build this way, and it's not too hard. It just takes a little practice. So I'm going to kind of give this a rough sort of tree shape. I usually start with the bottom branches, and then sort of work my way up. So this looks alright. We'll give a couple more in here, and then maybe give a little bit up here, and just sort of roughen the shape that we want our tree to take on. A lot of this stuff is going to get replaced. It doesn't have to look perfect at this stage by any means. There we go. That's a tree. Perfect. We're done. No, just kidding. So what we need to do now, if you're building along at home, is to sort of shape these out and replace a bit of these with some more interesting detail. So we'll take a look here, and it's always a good idea when you're working with a new material to sort of test out your paints on it and see what sorts of things happen when you paint it. So for the leaves, we're going to be using a mix of the two different limes as well as the deep green paint. So just to kind of get an idea of what each of those looks like, we're using the regular lime on that one. We'll use the deep lime over here, I guess. And then we'll use the deep green. Now, the two limes don't really look all that much different, but you can see the green definitely does. So with the limes, it preserves a bit of these shadows a little bit better, I think, so you get what looks to be more detail in the leaves, whereas painting with the deep green paint sort of washes out those shadows and sort of makes the whole thing a little bit more uniform in color. And since the detail in the lime looks a little bit better, more detailed, I guess, more defined, we're going to use the lime paint on any of the leaves that we want closer to the camera, or sort of in the foreground, I guess. And then we'll use that deep green to add in shadows and parts that are further back. So let's go ahead and do just that. I'm going to toss some of the deep green paint up here at the top of the tree. And again, this is not an exact science, so do this however you like. There's no wrong way. But I just want to get paint on all these leaves, at the very least, so that we have sort of consistent color. Alright, that looks alright to me. So now, I'm going to go through here, and this is where things get a little freeform. And I'm just going to start taking out some of the blocks that we've added here. And there's not necessarily a rhyme or reason to this, but I'm trying to create some places that we can make some... what's the word I'm looking for? Gaps, I guess. Just some gaps in the tree. I don't know. Okay, this looks fine. So I just wanted to take a little bit of this out and sort of lighten up. You're really looking to lighten up any of the shadows that you see. So like you can see this little bit up here because this is all blocks. It's a little bit darker. So what I might do is go ahead and take off a block or two and sort of lighten that up. That looks good to me. We'll be able to let more light in as we go, as we start hammering things up and sort of making this tree feel like a real tree. So the nice thing with hammering leaf walls is they all hammer really nicely, and it's pretty easy to get... I don't want to say pretty easy. It doesn't take too long to find, you know, something that looks decent, like this here, I think. So yeah, you just sort of click around, and I sort of want this to be... I sort of want this to have like a bottom layer to the trees and then a top layer that's sort of in the background. And that looks good there. So I'm going to go ahead and kick this up, bring this down. This doesn't have to look great at this stage, like I said. Really all you're doing here is trying to kind of take the Terraria out of this where you can see like where the blocks are. That's really your goal in natural builds, I think, is to trick people into not knowing exactly how your build was made. That's always kind of a fun thing. I think it's a sign of a good natural build. Because yeah, if you can fool people into wondering whether you're using modded blocks or anything like that, just using vanilla, it's pretty cool. It's pretty satisfying. You can definitely do that. Alright, I think we're just about ready to stop hammering. I could get lost in this. You can do this for as long as you want. You don't have to move as fast as I do or anything like that. But this looks pretty good to me, and I think this is going to take us a little ways into this. So let's start adding some detail. Now, we talked about these magma walls already, and I actually really like using these in the actual tree itself. So what I'm doing here is just sort of filling out some of the space, giving a little bit more body to some of the areas that maybe don't have a lot, just have little dangly bits. That's not too bad, and of course that looks absolutely ridiculous, so let's go ahead. And for these, I actually recommend that you don't use deep paint, use the regular one because it'll preserve the shadows a little bit better. Now if you want to use the magma walls where there's maybe not quite as much gray, you can use that deep paint to wash some of that out. And I might actually do that on a couple of these, maybe not green though. So you can see you get a little bit less of the black when you paint them like that, so that's not too bad. But for some of these areas that are meant to be a little further into the shadows, I don't think we're actually going to take away that gray color. Some of these blocks and walls will get replaced here as we go as well. So yeah, this is, you don't have to do this perfect. That's the whole point of this. I've found in my experience natural builds turn out looking good when you're willing to put a little bit of time into them, and that's really all it amounts to. It's just spending some time with it. So yeah, we'll toss some grassy walls in there. The grass walls don't really have a lot of detail. I'm not a big fan of that. But maybe we can just kind of clean up these leaves a little bit. And this is the essence of natural building, is just sort of, yeah, kind of hammering and tinkering until you get something that kind of looks like a tree. There's not much more rhyme or reason to it. Oh, I kind of like this. This little hook thing gives a tree a little bit of personality. Let's add another background wall in here, though, because I think this is getting a little bit stale. So another one that I found that works really well behind tree leaves is the Hallowed Crystalline wall. There's other Hallowed walls that work just as well, really, but this is one that I used. And so the first bit of this, I noticed this is way too big. And so I'd like to maybe replace that with something that's a little bit more green and less of that gray that we see on some of these. Get one in there? Yeah, alright. And I think I'm actually going to take this one out. This thing kind of goofs up the silhouette there. So that looks good. I want to actually try painting these in the green paint back here. Yeah, look at that. It's so cool. So yeah, using the actual green paint, not the lime paint. Use green in the shadows where you really want to drive home the point that this is in the background. It works really well on these hallowed walls. Now, up here you can see, kind of works, but I feel like the depth isn't right. I also don't like this one being there, I think. I don't know, I was so nervous about doing this this episode because it's like natural builds are so hard to replicate. Like I can build die carts and wagons all day long, but my goodness, trying to replicate a natural build is terrifying. So let's see, what else can we get in here? Hallowed Crystalline we've been using. I just I don't know, I think this is an okay shape. I don't know. I'm never satisfied with these things. And that's okay. You don't have to be either. So maybe what we'll do, we'll tuck one in there, another one down there. Maybe that's the recipe. It's just lots of tinkering, lots of painting, lots of seeing how something looks. Like this bit here is too far down. Like all of these are kind of too far down. But in some cases, maybe that's what you want. So like this one, for instance, maybe we can just bring this tree down a little bit more, and that'll help out. That looks good. Okay. Good-ish. What else can we do? Should put a couple more in there. Yeah. Alright, now to give this a little bit more life, what I would like to do, I think I'm going to paint this one deep lime as well. There we go. So yeah, we'll start bringing some of those into the foreground, but what I want to do now is kind of go back to what we were talking about, where that green paint works really well as sort of a background indicator. So what I'm going to do is just go along the top of the outer edge of this tree, and just start painting some of the parts that I think will be in shadows into that deep green color. So I just want to make sure that anywhere where there would be a shadow, I have deep green. And then on the flip side, anywhere where there's going to be a highlight, we want to do the lime paint. So we'll even bring that all the way up to the top of the tree and kind of give the indication that the light's coming from over here. Looks pretty good to me. Yep. And that one needs to be there. Alright, so this is looking pretty good. And again, you guys can, I mean, you can mess with this all you want. In all honesty, you can sit here and tinker with this for basically forever until you get a look that you really like. So yeah, the last thing that we really need to bring this build together is a little something on this tree to break it up a little bit more. So the leaves look okay. This isn't my favorite, it's not my favorite leafy build, but you can just sit here and tinker and work until you get it right. But there's a couple more things that we can do that will probably help make things look a little bit better. So let's first switch back to our living mahogany wand. And what I want to do is just put a couple little indications of wood within these tree branches. So what I like to do is try to figure out on this tree, where would you see wood peeking through? And this big gap, I think, is prime for a bit of that. But I think we'll fix this big gap a little bit of a different way. So I think we could probably see maybe a branch for this one underneath it. So maybe we'll replace, maybe not that one, maybe that one's the one that we want. Let's go ahead and take that one off of there. Let's get our brown paint back out so it doesn't look so silly. Out of place, there we go, perfect. Okay, so now we can kind of tinker with this hammering and figure out which way looks like it makes the most sense. I think that's the one right there. That looks good to me. A little bit of brown just breaking up those tree leaves does wonders for depth as well. I think I'd like to do maybe one more of those. And I want to do this one. No, that's not the one I wanted to click on. That's the one. You know you've done a good job when you can't even tell which of your blocks you're trying to break apart. Okay, so that looks good to me. Let's go ahead and toss a little paint on that guy. Hammer this into some kind of thing that makes sense, and I can see some walls peeking through here that I didn't paint. So let's go ahead and fix that. I think we'll go deep green, because they're obviously in the background since I missed them. There we go, and that one there. It's looking good. Alright, and then the last thing that I did want to do was fill in this gap a little bit with some wood. So instead of using wood, I'm going to actually use layered dirt. And we're just going to toss this in. Now, I don't necessarily want the entire gap to be dirt, and you likely won't either. So we'll just toss a couple of them in there just to give that little indication. You don't have to tell the whole story. You can just give a little snippet here of a little bit of wood, and it looks great. And then I do want to fill in part of this, and I think we'll use the lava. And I really want to bring some life into this, so we'll use the deep green. And bam, there we go. Now that's looking pretty good to me, and I think this one could actually be that lava block too. I think that's a little bit too much wood. Yeah, I think that looks a little bit better. So that kind of covers the tree trunk and the leaves. Now I just want to show you one last little thing that's a really fun trick. I've seen this before. I caught wind of it again recently on Reddit and was reminded of it. And it's pretty simple to pull off, and you can use this not just in trees but in bushes and all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to take out a couple of these blocks. It doesn't matter which ones really. It's totally up to you. And we're just going to put a little bit of fruit on this tree. Yeah, maybe that's enough. Somehow I've once again missed another block. Another wall. Paint it green. It'll be fine. Alright, so onto the trick here. So here's the little trick for you. If you use rope or vine rope or any of the items like that, you can just add a single block into a gap, and oh my gosh, I can't even tell. There's one, okay. Not that one. Oh my goodness. It's so hard to see some of these sometimes. Well, I'll tell you what, let's put a bit of that pink paint to use here so that we can actually see what it is that we're adding. And there we go. So you can see a little bit of fruit, and I want to add another one. I'm wondering if maybe there's already a gap over here. Oh, there's one right there. Okay, well, that works for me. Let's paint that one. And what if we just do that somewhere? Does that look okay? That doesn't look too bad. I think we still need one in here though, so we're gonna carefully pickaxe something out. I don't know if that's the one that I wanted. No, it's most certainly not. So you can see if it's next to or below a hammered block, it doesn't give you the same round shape. So for instance, if we just do a quick little experiment here. So if we put just a single tile of vine rope in, this is the effect that we're looking for, but you can ruin the effect if you hammer it. So just be wary of that. If you're building these trees, there's a good chance there's going to be a hammered block above it. So if you notice that your vine ropes don't look like this, you just need to check the block above it. Nothing too scary there. I think instead I actually wanted that one. Yeah, that one looks a little bit better. Yeah, I believe. We just play with it. Now, this one's got a little bit of a thing there. I'm not entirely sure why. Okay, yep, let's just play with the hammering. That's all it really amounts to. If something doesn't look quite right, just play with the hammer. See what you can come up with. That looks good to me. Get a little bit of a hammer on this thing, and I think we're almost ready to call this one done. This spot over here looks a little on the dark side, so I'm going to replace one of those with that lava block. Or magma wall, that's it. Get a little bit of green paint on that guy, and I think we can call this one good. Yeah, this is a fun build. It's a good, simple, small, digestible, little tiny thing that you can play around with for as long as you like, and hopefully make you a little bit more comfortable building natural things. I know it's not super comfortable to me, and I'm sure it's probably the same for a lot of you out there, so hopefully this helps. If you guys have ideas for stuff that you'd like to see me build in this series, just let me know in the comments. Make sure you all like and subscribe and do all that stuff. I think that's just about it, so I want to thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.